Welcome to In the Dark, or welcome back to In the Dark if you're a return listener. If you guys hear any kind of an announcement type thing in the background going on, there's some kind of a game going on close to my area where I live, and it is there's some kind of an announcer. So if you hear some weird background noise, that's what it is. And also it's raining, which I love. Everybody knows I love the rain. I wanted to tell you guys that Robin is coming back on this week, and she actually, Pat, her husband, has also agreed to do the show. We haven't set up a time or day yet, but we're going to get that done. Robin's definitely coming on. We're also setting up a Q&A type thing for the listeners. If you guys have any questions for me or for Robin, please send them in to inthedark2021@gmail.com. Or you can, post them up on YouTube. You can, I've gotten some voice messages for the podcast here on the podcast channels. Only thing with the voice messages is I can't respond. I can get them though. So if you guys want to send voice messages, please feel free to send them. Just know that I can't respond to those messages that I can see. I don't see anywhere where it allows you to respond. So, but I do get them. I think. At least I've gotten them. So, wanted to encourage you guys to send in those questions. Robin says, and I'm going to say this as well, that, there's things we don't know. We're not experts. She has a great deal of experience with the cryptids. I've got a lot of experience with paranormal. She also has paranormal experiences. And this week, when she comes on, I'm going to try to get her to delve into that as well. Because, we both have had a little bit of everything, but she really gets hit with the cryptid aspect of this, especially since she lives right around really heavily wooded areas. So feel free to please, send those questions in. I'm going to get back into the Ted Gunderson talks. This is part 3 of this little series that I began, and I want to, get this wrapped up. I'm going to have one more part of this after this. So, anybody that doesn't know who Gunderson was, who's just starting to tune into my channel now and hasn't listened to the past episodes about him, he was an ex-FBI agent who worked for the FBI for 30 years. He was one of the heads of the FBI. Very credible man, very respected. He had been in charge of one of the sectors in Los Angeles, and before that in Dallas as well. So he loved his job, worked for them for a lot of years, very respected. And it wasn't until he retired and he was asked to help with a case, the Jeffrey McDonald case, where I think he was a Green Beret that had murdered his wife and children, that Gunderson had his eyes open to the corruption that's actually in the FBI and the government, and the Satanism and stuff that's going around in our country and around the world. And he became a whistleblower and decided to spend his life, championing the people of the United States and around the world, and getting this information out there to us, even though it could have cost him his life, his family's life. He had threats on his life. He had bank accounts frozen. He was followed. He was shot at, threatened, you name it. And this is how he spent his retirement. So please take this into consideration. If you're somebody that's a doubter, or, likes to scream conspiracy theorist, that type of stuff, just try to listen and open your heart up to your ears, your eyes, up to what's going on here. So Gunderson had been in charge of the FBI, like I had said, first in Dallas, then he went to Los Angeles. He got to thinking about the Jack Kennedy assassination after he started learning about the government corruption and started looking into that. He learned through his investigation of it that it was a joint hit by the CIA and the Chicago mob, no question about it. It's pretty odd to, find out that, it's one thing to hear that the Chicago mob had put a hit out on the President of the United States and killed him, but to find out that the CIA was also involved is pretty unsettling. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name that well, but Sam Giancana was one of the heads of the mob for La Cosa Nostra. 3 days before he was to testify before Congress about this case, he was shot and killed, murdered. So this encouraged Gunderson to do even more checking into these national terrorist acts that have taken place and other cover-ups in the United States. Gunderson interviewed the naval intelligence officer who on December 4th, 1941, received info that the Japanese were going to bomb Pearl Harbor. We had broken the secret code of the Japanese. The officer told Gunderson personally that he had given the info to his superiors on December 4th. They passed it up the line. After Pearl Harbor, he was subpoenaed to testify before Congress. His boss then called him into his office and said, "Don't worry about that. Don't respond to this subpoena. Someday you'll know why." So he never testified. And he probably never found out why. Waco then took place. The military was involved in destroying, shooting, and killing women and children, and also the FBI was involved as well. They used tanks, military tanks, in violation of the Posse Comitatus, which is the law that says the military cannot be used to enforce the civilian population. They got away with it. There's a law that says they can't do it. They did it, and they walked away, and nothing was ever done. In his research, Gunderson found in Waco there were 4 BATF agents who were shot and killed. Some of the Branch Davidians were tried and sentenced for these, quote, murders, and are serving prison sentence terms, probably for life. In researching the 4 BATF agents who were shot, Gunderson learned that every one of them was shot in the head. For those of you who have been in the military, that's a sniper shot. No question about it. One of them, in fact, the bullet went from above the top of their head, down through his lip, down on through his body. Probably from a helicopter from above. All 4 of the BATF agents had been former bodyguards for former President Bill Clinton. It's amazing how one person can make such a difference in the world. For some reason, I was thinking about, when I just read Bill Clinton, I thought, one person, people, we all think with like this mass mentality that we're like this large group together, brothers and sisters filling the earth. It takes one person to be president, one person to be a whistleblower, one person to be an assassin, one person to be the Queen of England, one person to make a huge difference in this world. People don't understand how important they are. Each and every one of us, how important we are, how influential we could be, how any help that we give, anything that we run for, anything that we decide to do, whether it's good or bad, good or evil, positive or negative, how it affects people. One word, one sentence could send somebody to commit suicide. Think about that stuff. Ruby Ridge. Randy Weaver was set up by a BATF agent. BATF, by the way, stands for Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. He was set up by an informant from the BATF. He bought a shotgun that was 1/4 of an inch too short by law. They arrested him, served him with a warrant to appear before the courts. They say he refused, and they sent an army after him. Let me tell you, he didn't refuse. Randy Weaver was sent a court date to appear, and then the court date was changed. He didn't receive it in time, and that's what caused all this. This was what caused this army to be sent out after him. Horiuchi was the FBI agent, sharpshooter that shot and killed his wife, and also Randy Weaver's 14-year-old son was killed that day too, and I think there was some other people. The wife was standing in the doorway, and she was shot and killed by this Horiuchi that used to brag about what a great shot he was. There's a lot more to that story as well, but if you get into the real story and not what the CIA or FBI wanted you to believe, you learn there's a lot to this. So he didn't just refuse to appear. He just the date was changed. So this was another instance where they lied about and tried to railroad another good, loyal American who fell into a trap. He was also ex-military as well. He moved out to the country to get away from it all. And, if you want to research that case, it would be a good case to research. The one that really always stood out to me was the Great Conspiracy, what they call it. 1993, New York Times copy, FBI informant, came out on October 28th, 1993. Car bombing of the World Trade Center. This one always stuck with me for some reason. I don't know why. It really made you think. Oh my God. Here, now I'm getting a phone call. Great. Gotta get a grip on this. This phone situation. I have a very busy life and a busy phone. I don't know what it is. So the car bombing of the World Trade Center, this was, like I said, this was something that really stuck out for me. This was just, I don't know. There was something about this in the McVeigh case. Timothy McVeigh, I remember the day that Timothy McVeigh was being put to death. And I remember my blood just ran cold that day. I don't know what it was. It was some kind of a weird connection I felt, not to him personally, but just knowing that there was something really off. And I was much younger, and it was like maybe my psychic senses were picking up on something, but really, really bothered me. I was just really bothered by that. It was like I knew they were putting somebody that was, innocent to death, or something was just not right with the case. So, many don't know about this one, or it's been forgotten about, because you don't hear a lot of people talk about this. So in this article, the New York Times, it was reported from the trial that took place, an FBI informant named Salem, I don't know how you pronounce it, Salem, Salam, was in among the terrorists, testified he was commissioned by the terrorists to put the car bomb together to bomb the World Trade Center in February of 1993. Fortunately for him, when he met with the terrorist, he wore a body mic so he could record every word that was said. You got to understand, this is an FBI agent. Okay, he was put in there to basically spy. So he recorded every word by the terrorist. He was commissioned to put the bomb together, unknown to the FBI. When he met with the FBI, he also wore a body mic. That was probably what kept him from being set up and framed and sent to prison. This was in the newspaper article. He went to his FBI superiors and said, I've been commissioned to put the bomb together. We're going to use a dummy bomb. Correct? This is what he asked them. He was ensuring that they weren't going to be using a real bomb. They said, no, we're going to use a real bomb. Now, I don't understand why Congress and Senate investigators and our leaders in Washington, D.C. were not freaking out over this situation. There's something so sinister going on here, so deeply corrupted. These people, beings, whatever, or whoever they are, get away with anything and everything. It's so big, goes so deep. It's worldwide. It's like an unstoppable criminal worldwide enterprise of beings pulling every string imaginable. The FBI not only knew in advance about the car bombing, they furnished the ingredients. The information comes out, and what's done about it? Nothing. Just swept under the rug. It's all a show. It's a freaking show. Hang tight. I'll return in a moment.
Hey, everybody. If you guys like this show and you want to make your own podcast, let me tell you a little bit about Anchor. It's free, for one. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And now you can even add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless for what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Very easy, very enjoyable platform to start a podcast on. Trust me. So download your free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm, that's F as in Frank, M as in Mary, to get started. Check it out, you guys. It's worth it.
Okay. It's unbelievable how much of this is swept under the rug. These hearings they held, it's all for show. It's a freaking show. They know nothing's going to come of it. They do it for us, to put on an act, to make us believe that they're really trying to find out what's going on. They're doing these big investigations, trying to make, the people think that, they're really going to check it. It's like the missing people, the people that go missing in the woods and around the world. They know damn well what's going on. They know they're being abducted by ETs, by cryptids. They send out all these huge teams of searchers. The FBI gets dropped in on occasion. Nobody knows why the FBI's there. The CIA might show up, Men in Black. They know perfectly well what's going on. They know perfectly well they're probably not going to find the people. And if they do, they're not going to be alive. There are times they're alive, but most of the time they're not. It's crazy. It's all for show. Why doesn't somebody take some action? Why didn't somebody take action in this case? Why doesn't somebody start a major honest-to-God investigation on the international kidnapping ring being operated by the CIA? I call it the Child and Prisoner Abduction Ring. CIAR. That's what I started to call it. Why are these congressmen voting on bills like the Patriot Act and others that take away many of our constitutional rights and civil liberties in the best interest of, quote, protection for our country and protection from the terrorists? Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. There are people in our government, possibly a rogue outfit, maybe not rogue, maybe just full-blown part of our government, who are actually behind these terrorist acts. And more people are facing that truth It's amping up. You can feel it. And the reason they're behind these terrorist acts, let me say that again. The reason they're behind these terrorist acts is so they can pass bills like the Patriot Act, stripping us of every right they can, one by one, little by little, and on and on and on. Baby steps. They take little acts here, raise prices a little bit there, up and up and up they go. On and on it goes. Because nobody says much when it's just little things. You know, it's just one act. It's just one price that's hiked. Oh, I'm gonna hike it 10 cents this year, 20 cents next. Little by little. Rights are being taken away. Prices are going up. And all of it's being swept under the rug. Do you still believe that these people are just humans? That they're so dedicated? You know, there's we live to be 60, 80 years old. They're this dedicated. There's a battle, a war going on for a very, very long time. And this is not just about the human beings who live, like I said, from 60 to 80. You know, that's the average lifespan in age. Think again. Blood sacrificing is still going on today. For anybody that says, you know, that this isn't a spiritual war, that, this is, there's a separation between cryptids, between the government, between Satanists. There's no separation. It's all biblical. And the reason the senators and congressmen vote for these bills, hear me now, okay? The reason the senators and the congressmen are voting for these bills they don't even read, by the way, and they make them so long, they don't even want to read them. It's because they've been set up and framed, fallen for the trap set to own them, to do these evil beings' bidding, set up through sex and drugs. That's why. That's why they're voting for him. So let's move on to the Oklahoma City, 1995. Gunderson personally had made 2 trips to Oklahoma City and investigated Oklahoma City. And because of his report, the defense attorney for Tim McVeigh sent 2 of his investigators to interview Gunderson, who spent 4 hours with them. They told Gunderson they were allowed to tour the remains of the Murrah building in Oklahoma City in the presence of a U.S. Marshal, but they were not allowed to take soil samples, under any circumstances, or to pick up any evidence for examination. Stephen Jones was their attorney. Gunderson had heard they were going to tear down the building. Now you can trace bombs through what they call the taggets for chemicals. When he heard that When Gunderson had heard that they were going to tear down the building, he called John DeCamp and told John they had to prevent that building from coming down. He called an outfit in Chicago with the Pat Kennedy Group, who were specialists in examining evidence of that type. John called McVeigh's attorney. John had a client he was representing who was involved in the case. John said he would handle the paperwork and they would have a hearing to prevent the building from coming down. The next thing they heard, the building was coming down anyway. John called Jones and asked what was going on, but Jones had no good answer for them. That was evidence. Gunderson had been to many crime scenes, and he knew it was critical that the evidence be preserved. That was a huge cover-up. McVeigh wrote a letter to his sister. McVeigh was in Special Forces. The government had said he had flunked out. He didn't flunk out. He had been recruited out of Special Forces, according to the letter he wrote his sister, and trained to be a CIA assassin and also to work for the CIA International Drug Operation, both against the competition and for the competition. One world bullshit agenda going on here. It's all an illusion. The CIA drug people, the pro-drug people that work in the CIA. I mean, just think about that. In Gunderson's opinion, McVeigh was a mind control victim. He was visited in prison in Oklahoma and in Colorado by Dr. Jolly West. And this was secret. Gunderson happened to find out because he had made some phone calls to the right people. Jolly West was one of the foremost leaders, along with Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA's MK Ultra mind control operation. They were the Jolly West and the Sidney Gottlieb were basically like heads of it, of the MK Ultra mind control operation. So why would somebody like Jolly West go interview McVeigh, not only in Oklahoma, but also in Colorado during the trial? Because he was a mind control victim himself. At one time, it was reported in the U.S. News and World Report that McVeigh had a microchip in his buttocks. Our military had reportedly been using microchips to keep track of their soldiers. The bomb in the truck allegedly was a fertilizer bomb. The government first announced that it was a 1,500-pound bomb, then it went to being a 2,500-pound bomb, and then it ended up with them claiming it was a 4,800-pound bomb, which was in the truck that destroyed the hull, or half the building, I'm sorry. So this bomb is 4,800-pound, alleged 4,800-pound bomb, destroyed half of the building, which is a lot. A 4,800-pound ammonia nitrate fertilizer bomb dissipates and did not have the potential or the possibility of destroying that much of the building. After the Oklahoma City bomb went off, Gunderson got a call from a friend of his, Michael. Some of these names were kind of pseudo. He called Gunderson. He had worked with Michael since the early 1980s, 1982 to be exact, when he first met him. He was a CIA agent and operative for two decades and more, and was also an FBI informant at one point. His father owned the Hercules Manufacturing in Silicon, California, which developed what is known as the electro-hydrodynamic gaseous fuel device, which is a highly classified bomb. The bomb was actually manufactured by Dynamo Bell out of Salt Lake City. Michael had ended up in jail because he had started to talk before the Brooks Committee about a very interesting case involving the Promise software. I'm just going to give you a little back info on Michael here so you know who he is. So he had ended up in jail over the Promise software. The Promise software was a computer operation that developed all kinds of intelligence and information on you and I and every citizen in America. The Department of Justice leased it for 2 years, and at the end of 2 years, they refused to pay Bill and Nancy Hamilton the $10 million they owed them. Then the Department of Justice, through Earl Bryan, who was the past president of the United Press International, took that computer and sold it around the world to the French, English, Israelis, Canadians, etc. Unknown to the officials in these foreign countries, there was a trapdoor in the computer. Very clever, huh? The trapdoor secretly allowed the United States government to retrieve all the info they developed. Like all these countries, anything they developed, the trapdoor let us know what it was. Pretty crazy stuff. Just a whole lot of wow going on, isn't it? It's just crazy stuff. just a bunch of BS. The beings that had all of this already know all this info. You know, it's all for show. So Michael Riconosciuto was the CIA agent who developed the trapdoor in the promised software computer. And when Congress started, I gotta say, you can't feel too sorry that the guy's in prison falsely after he did something like that. He developed this software that spies on every one of us. And we're supposed to feel sorry for him. Even if he was falsely put in prison. I mean, don't you think in a way he got his just desserts? So when Congress started to investigate it in the late 1980s, they called on Michael to testify. Michael received a threatening phone call 2 weeks before he was to testify. He claimed from a fellow named Peter Vitnica. Vitnix? Maybe Vitnix. My writing is terrible. I really have to get my writing under control. He was from the U.S. Department of Justice, who threatened, if you testify, you'll be sorry. Michael testified anyway, and a few weeks later, he was arrested for drugs and is now serving a 30-year prison sentence. I don't know how much of that he's still serving, but that's what he was sentenced to and was in prison for that, and he probably served or is serving the entire sentence because he dared to expose these nefarious activities by this criminal enterprise operating within the confines of the United States government. So he exposed them, and they threw his butt in jail for 30 years. And they threw him in jail for drugs. So, like I said, not to get off on another person, but a little background on Michael was needed so you understood who Michael is. He has credibility, even though he developed this software and was a piece of garbage, in my opinion. So Michael called Gunderson right after the Oklahoma City bombing went off, and he said, Ted, that's my bomb. Called him from prison, meaning Hercules developed it. That was not an ammonia nitrate bomb. When that bomb was tested in 1982, Gunderson was with a group of intelligence agents waiting for the results of that test. Get this. It was tested in Area 51. Kind of goes through you a little bit. It was underestimated because the power of that bomb was so powerful that 2 of the technicians died. They underestimated the strength of it. This barometric bomb, according to Michael, was what was in the vehicle, not a fertilizer bomb. Gunderson had an Oklahoma City report on that as well. Gunderson went on to the Pickaninny Arsenal in New Jersey and gave them the contract number, which he had obtained through a science magazine one of his associates had done the research on for Gunderson. It's publicly available info, by the way. The Pickaninny Arsenal came back with, there's no such contract, even though Gunderson had the contract right before him. It's documented in Gunderson's report. He then went to Dynamo Bell, who he knew manufactured it, and they didn't even bother to respond back to Gunderson. Yet, one of their people testified at the grand jury when they indicted McVeigh. Get this. In September of 1995, some 5 or 6 months after the bombing, in the Firearms magazine, there was an article written by the editor. The information was obtained from the Oklahoma City Fire Department. In that article, it states that 4 unexploded devices, this is what got me about the case, by the way. 4 unexploded devices were taken out of the building when people were in the building after the bombing took place, dying. So they're in the building laying there dying. They discontinued the rescue efforts for some 5 hours while they carried out a bunch of government files. Men in blue suits, sweatsuits of some sort, did this. Oklahoma City was perpetrated by certain people other than McVeigh and Nichols. I can tell you that. Roger Moore, the gun dealer from Arkansas who claims he was robbed of his guns and that money was used to finance the Oklahoma City bombing. Moore was at that point accused by Terry Nichols of being involved in it. Moore denied it, of course. Moore, at the time of the bombing, was an FBI informant. Gunderson had one inside investigator of Oklahoma City bombing tell him that there were at least 11 other individuals involved in the Oklahoma City bombing. These people or beings are destroying people's lives. They don't think twice about it. They're pure evil. These names of these organizations, FBI, CIA, and hell, throw in IRS, they all seem to be synonymous with evil, with corruption, with so much power that we feel powerless against them. They're so protected, and they can basically do whatever the hell they want. So that will bring us up to 9/11, which I will get into in the next episode. So stay tuned. Come back, or, make sure you guys catch all this. The web just keeps growing. Holes keep getting deeper. Whatever you want to say. However you want to put it. It's some crazy stuff, guys. You have a great day. I'll be talking to you soon. Say your prayers. Stay safe. God bless you all. Take care.